All right, thanks, Tina. Hello, everybody. This is Mark Vogt, and welcome to the Chicagoland SharePoint Users Group session, February 14th. Hope you, thanks for coming. Welcome. We have actually more registered users, 28 plus than ever before. We're terribly pleased about that. If any of you can see the shared screen, you'll see not this year's snowstorm, but the 1967 Chicago blizzard that was legendary and buried people. Just seemed kind of apropos to kick everything off that way. We have two guest presenters today, Michael Blumenthal, MVP, and Ralph Rivas from Magenic Consulting. I see Ralph is just getting on now and getting started. Let's dive in. We've got some pretty fun stuff to talk about today and to share and a demo. Today's agenda is going to cover SharePoint, the big picture. We always have 1 or 2 slides on that. Recent news and upcoming events. Not as good as I usually am on this, but we'll cover some things. We'll dive into Office 365 updates with Michael Blumenthal. We're going to start a new area called the SPFX, the SharePoint Framework Update with Ralph, where this is going to be an ongoing thing, giving us tidbits about what, not only what's going on, but what to look forward to, gotchas, caveats, things like that. Then we're going to dive into some newer material, talking about the JSON column formatting that's now available in Microsoft SharePoint lists. And I'll do a very brief little demo, but it's kind of exciting, kind of cool, replaces a lot of CSS that I've been doing in the past. We'll also continue looking at those 40 apps that can go inside Microsoft Teams. And that's going to go and segue nicely into one of those apps, which is, yes, you guessed it, Microsoft Power Apps. Apps can actually be embedded in there. And we'll finish the rest of the session showing how Power Apps can be merged together, integrated with not just Microsoft Flows, but with SharePoint Designer workflows to actually be able to do push notifications out to your phones and actually really engage your users with what were originally SharePoint Designer workflows that had to be looked at through a browser, through a normal laptop. So kind of an exciting day today. Let's dive in. Big picture stuff. If you recall, MTech has a collaboration model. It's collaboration maturity model that's made up of 4 steps. What we've seen in the past is that the first 2 stages, communicating and sharing, have always been very well handled. Email, file servers, chatting, social media have all done a pretty good job of that, even since Al Gore invented the internet way back in 1995. Where we've been waiting for more work to be done, more functionality to be produced, is in taking on this next step of collaboration maturity, starting to deal in the currency of tasking. And as I looked at the next batch of apps that could go inside Microsoft Teams, I started to see that a very large number of them are all about task management. So even though vendors to date have only been playing at empowering the stage, we're actually starting to see them take this very, very seriously now, so that must be a part of these websites as environments, websites as rooms metaphor, whether it's in Teams or whether it's in SharePoint team sites themselves. We're going to see a big push. We're seeing a big push into tasks, and that's kind of exciting. So keep that in mind, that SharePoint's always about trying to empower this 4-step maturity model. If you guys, I can hear a couple of microphones. If you guys can mute some of the attendees. Whatever you're sipping on sounds really good. You're making me thirsty. Diving into news and events, just to keep things on your radar. This is a lot of rehash from January and February. There's going to be a sneak preview release of SharePoint 2019 in mid-2018. Skype is merging into Teams throughout this year. There is a Windows 10 Fall Creators update. Office.com got an update. A few other things. There's a forecasting feature in Excel, still part of Office, still related some ways to Office 365 and hence into SharePoint, and then relevant to this group. We might even have somebody take a peek at that and maybe give a demo in the near future. Upcoming events. Actually, I thought I fixed this. The next session is March 14th, 2018. Sorry, everybody. I'm not certain of the dates on the upcoming SharePoint Saturday Chicago in the suburbs and in the fall. So I'll defer to Mike, defer to Ralph if they know or if anybody's heard any dates right now. Otherwise, I didn't get a chance to update this particular slide very much. So it's still just looking way ahead to the fall and even into the late fall for upcoming major events. Let's segue right over into Mike Blumenthal and a very quick Office 365 news and events. Welcome, Michael. Do you need me to pass the presenter role over to you?
Yes, please.
doing so now.
1, 2, 3, 4. There we go.
Over to you, Michael.
Hello. Let's see. Not seeing the button to share my screen.
Let's try one more time.
Under sharing, you should be able to see the button to share your screen.
Panel, span control panel.
Should be the top area.
Okay. I'm seeing. I'm just not seeing that this time.
I can switch it back to Mark, and maybe we'll switch it back to you. So let's try this again. We're going to make Mark the presenter, and then we'll switch it back to you, Michael. So give me 1 second.
And Mark, can you show where on your GoToMeeting client the sharing is?
Yeah, when Dina made me a presenter, I got a little dialog box 2 inches by 1 inch that popped up in the middle of my screen that says, "You've been made the presenter, share my screen," with a pop down or a drop down.
Switching it back to you.
Okay. So yeah, I see you're the presenter now. Switch it back to me. I'm listed as a panelist right now.
Okay.
So we have you as a presenter now. It says waiting to view your screen.
And you're looking for some little pop-up dialog box. I wonder if it got buried underneath your slides anywhere.
Possibly. Let's double check that.
If there's maybe a problem, we could potentially forward the slides to Mark, and he could show them for you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be.
Let's try the next one. Ralph, good morning or good afternoon. Feel free to unmute. Ralph, have you got any slides that you want to show for the SharePoint framework?
No slides. It's a PowerPoint-less a little presentation over here. If you guys can hear me, first?
Yeah, you sound great. I'm going to ask Dina to hand the presenter rights over to you, and we'll see if that works.
Absolutely. And Ralph, you should be presenting.
Yeah, I got the show my screen. So let me see. Show my screen on monitor 2, and you should be able to see where it says update SharePoint framework packages.
Yes, we see it. Continue. Okay. It looks great.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is going to be really, really short. The first thing I'd like to say, one of the feedback we got last time is there's folks that are still, as they say, looking for love for good old SharePoint 2013, or even perhaps SharePoint 2016 on premises. And of course, a lot of what we've been focusing on with SharePoint Online and of course the SPFX bits have been the latest and greatest, the bleeding edge, the fun stuff, the things that you can do whatever you want stuff, you could say. But no feeling of love going back to those guys, all right? But obviously, those are not dead ends. Every time, I'll tell you right now, my experience has been every major conference that I've gone to, or not even major conference, but mostly user groups that are in person and everything else, when they have a speaker, they're going to be talking about how to do SharePoint framework stuff or some of this new web stuff, and they're almost always showing it on old style SharePoint, either 2013 or in 2016. And it's like, well, aren't you guys showing online? It's like, well, our clients will never ever leave and never ever go online. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but if that's the case, it means that there's a lot of material out there. So going forward, there's going to be a poll either here or on the email and all this stuff. What we'd like you to do is just say, yes, you're interested in finding out more about this, because I can deep dive that stuff for you. There are a lot of issues, a lot of gotchas, but there are also a lot of solutions. It's a case of if you must go this way. I have a little bit of a, not exactly maybe a moral dilemma, right? Should I show you how to maybe continue what is perhaps not the behavior we want to promote? or should I just basically say, no, it's not possible? You're going to find out how to do it one way or the other. So if you're going to find out, you might as well find out in the nice way. And I don't mind showing that. So that will be a poll if it's not already being done that will ask if anyone's interested in SPFX or that the newer web development type pieces, the web tool chain happening on 2013/2016. All right. In the future, we will have those kind of sessions if people are interested. If people are like, oh, no, we're just hanging on to this until we're done and we're moving forward. We don't want to spend any money trying to make old stuff work. If that's your attitude, no problem. Then we'll proceed and we'll go forward. But I'll tell you right now, there's something out there called COBOL.net to show you that some things will not go away. All right. Seriously, it exists. COBOL.net, open source.
Ralph, you mentioned a survey. Is that something that you want to submit to the meetup group?
That's something that I'm suggesting that the meetup itself submit to the users. That basically you're asking everybody in the meetup and stuff, because I could pose a question on the discussion, but that's not likely going to be as seen as if it comes from you guys.
Yeah, right? Let's you and I work together, and we can the meetup.com website.
Sure. How do I send out a traditional survey from good old Office 365? Just saying.
That's the way we're going to do it. We'll
you got your mailing list, so feel free to, as they say, get the poll out. All right. So that on the side. Over here, one of the big issues over here that with SPFX, it's the latest things. There are certain things that we thought were going to change by now. In fact, my last presentation was like, here's the biggest change that happened. But there's a lot of changes and they're on the line. And guess what? They're still on the line. They're sort of delayed. They're trying to get it right, and I'd rather them wait till they get it right. So they're saying any moment now. So while that any moment is going on, one of the things that I have run into is I have seen in our good old SPDev, the GitHub with all the samples, people are probably trying to use those right now, that a lot of those are not usable. You download them and you're like, hey, they don't run. They don't work. I did the instructions, npmi, install, update. Hey, I'm getting error, this and that. There's a whole slew of issues. And because we look at this and it says all of them say a month ago or the last update was recently. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you right now, all those month ago updates are just one little thing, something called tslint, a little file that helps that particular feature that has nothing to do with the function itself. I got it from the horse's mouth, from the Microsoft devs, that basically none of these, I'm serious, none of them have been updated. The only ones that actually have been updated to work with the latest framework are the ones that have been posted literally recently. So
whoever's screaming the most.
Right, so whoever needs to have this, essentially, this is their step. They tell you, here's how to update your framework package. You got to follow these instructions. Now, again, these might not be complete, but there's other little things that have to be done. This is why there's folks like Andrew Connell that are promoting NVM, which is to the Node Version Manager, to do that sort of stuff, you know, to basically go back and forth so you don't have some of these problems. But this page I'm showing you right now, very key page, all right, on how to update that stuff, all right. And if you've been doing any kind of work with it, obviously you want to take a look at it. And finally, the last thing to show is over here. The overview of the SharePoint framework has been updated. I didn't show this on the last time, but this is one of the things that they did update in January, along with everything else, where they cover specifically what is the case of SharePoint on premises, SharePoint framework on premises when it comes to 2016. And here's just the bottom line. SharePoint on premises with the feature pack, which you must install, is actually the framework 1.1, not 1.4, which means specific version of Node, which means no extensions, all right, and everything else. All right, so that's something that just to keep in mind and be aware. If you want to do what SharePoint framework can do, there's a limit to what it can be done. On the 2013 side with JS Link, there's no way to absolutely recreate that. And as much as you'll see solutions that may say, okay, well, you can just like do traditional CSOM and do everything else. Again, it's the case of you want to really think that through. You're going to spend quite a lot of money to develop something in an old way when it literally is not only compatible, it's literally thrown out when you go forward. You can't take it with you. You cannot.
It's been shunned. You shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, right. But they literally made it where you can't take it with you. If you need to go to online or you need to go to the next, guess what, SP 2019, you can't take it with you. at all. It's like you did it maybe in 2016. Well, you did the CSOM. Okay, well, they sort of allowing that deprecated bit of things to work. But you know what they don't have in 2016 is Sandbox, for example. Gone
Right.
completely. So they're trying to not only wean you off, they're trying to kick you off as gently as possible. Microsoft won't kick people out directly, at least not always. And I'm not looking at you guys. You're from Skype, that is. But you got to just You just got to watch out for that. All right. And like I said, if that survey comes out, we recommend that folks please pay attention to it and say yes or no, we care or we don't. That way, I'll know what to focus on when I'm coming around next time for whatever topics.
Sure. Ralph, you're going to continue to be our go-to person every single month, keeping our hand on the pulse of the SharePoint framework for us. Thanks very much.
Okay, that does it.
Thanks again, Ralph. Dina, can you transfer presenting back to me? I'll present, but we'll let Michael talk.
Do I need to do that transfer over, or can that be done by?
We're
going to simply.
Okay, there we go. That's what I thought. All right.
Back in my
carry on, my wayward son.
Another Kansas fan. Fantastic. Michael, can everyone see the Office 365 news? Michael, here's your slides. You tell me when to go forward or backward. Feel free.
So I'm not seeing the presentation right now. I'm trying to leave and rejoin this.
It says Office 365 news, the basic users group meeting. I'm going to go to slide number 2 of 4, and we're seeing a set of conferences coming up.
Yes. Okay. So I'll just talk to those, even though I can't see them. So you asked earlier about when is SharePoint Saturday Chicago Suburbs coming. That is May 5th. And there's a site called SPFX.org, which has actually all of the SharePoint Saturdays. And so you can see the all the details about any upcoming SharePoint Saturday, including the SharePoint Saturday Suburban one. Let's see, the call for speakers, I believe, is open for another couple weeks, and the event will be May 5th. There's a number of other events that are of interest to us, especially for SharePoint professionals who are responsible for an intranet, and your business partner is HR or internal communications. There's an ALI Advanced Learning Institute event called ALI Internal Communications for a Dispersed Workforce, which comes to Chicago April 10th through 12th. That can be an interesting one. Going into May, we've got SharePoint North America. And this is the one where we can expect a bunch of announcements about the roadmap or the future for Office 365 and SharePoint Online and OneDrive. And then there's a Digital Workplace Experience Conference, June 18 to 20. And then Microsoft Ignite returns to Florida, September 24th to 28th. And that's another big one for us because if they're following the cadence from last year, they make initial roadmap announcements in May. Last year it was at a online Future of SharePoint event. This year it'll be at SharePoint North America, I suspect. And then they follow up in September with, hey, this is what we got done in the last several months, and here's more of where we're going.
Sounds cool. Oh, where's the SharePoint North America? Where's the location for that?
Las Vegas.
Oh, that's right, Las Vegas. Las Vegas in May sounds fantastic. Everybody
else. You'll be inside a conference room the whole time, so.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful if people that are attending this webinar, if you end up attending any of these conferences, I want to talk to you and see if you want to give us even a 5-minute overview of what you experienced, what your takeaways were. That would be fantastic. Mike,
actually, going off of that, relating to that point, if you can put into the chat window, if you would be interested, if you're not going to SharePoint and if you're not going to Las Vegas to attend SharePoint North America, if you'd be interested in a viewing party on May 21st for the keynote, I'm considering organizing one if there's interest.
That sounds cool. You've done that in the past, and I think it was well attended.
Yeah, and if you're interested in that, if you'd be interested in watching the keynotes from SPNA live with some local Chicago peers, then please indicate so in the chat. Moving along to past Ignite, we expect there'll be a SharePoint Saturday Chicago City in the fall, and then SharePoint Fest will return to Chicago in December, this time with an expanded agenda. For the last several years, they've been 3 or 4 day events. This year in this December, it'll be a 5-day event. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, it's only getting better. That's always a good sign. Let me go.
Please go on to the next slide.
Now we're looking at the 3 bullet points that are big. April 5th downtown for the adoption.
So this is about the next meeting of my other user group, the Office 365 Adoption User Group, and we are excited to have Jeff Abels talk to us about creating a people-centric digital workplace. So if you're only interested in SharePoint development, this is probably not the right event for you. But if you are, if you're focused if part of the thing you're interested in is how SharePoint, in particular SharePoint Online and overall Office 365 play a piece in the digital workplace story, then our user group is for you, and the session is for you. And again, you may want to bring one of your business partners or a partner on the business side, if you have those, and hopefully you do, to this meeting. So and that's on Meetup, and there's the more or less short link. It is case sensitive, so that's O365 Adoption User Group, AUG, Chi Chicago MU Meetup.
Okay.
And so please join us for that. And then next slide, please.
Last slide, 404, showing new features in Teams, command bar, and the 000 menu on the left nav.
Yep. And by 000, actually I mean the 3 dots, so the sushi menu. There's a new 3 dots that appeared on the left nav. If you have, do you have a Teams client you can show?
Yes, I think I do. Give me a moment.
Okay. I do apologize for the technical difficulties we're having here today.
We're winging it. Opening up a new tab.
Okay, so yeah, so if you've got the Teams desktop client, you'll notice in the last week or two, a couple new features arrived.
Oh, actually, I brought the browser. I don't know if I have the desktop installed on this particular machine.
Okay. So I'm not sure if the UI is the same. I've been generally using the desktop one.
I'll tell you in a second. It says loading Microsoft Teams. The user interface is popping up. And for everybody else that's online, I simply launched this from the little 3x3, the waffle menu that's available in Office 365. You also subscribe to Teams. And now I see the user interface, left-hand tool palette. I see a couple of ellipses next to each of my major channels. Tell me what I should be looking for.
So to the left of that, in the desktop client, there's activity, chat, teams, and files. Do you have that? Okay.
Yep.
So under files, is there a new set of ellipses?
Yes, and it pops up and goes to OneNote, Planner, Stream, Who, and even more apps.
Yes. So that is brand new. That just landed in the last, I don't want to say within the last 2 weeks. This is your sort of personal view of your team environment, and Who is a new bot. So go click on Who, please.
Okay. I see a little dialog box popped up in the middle, kind of a wizard for the Who app. It wants me to install it, but it says search for anyone in your organization based on what they're working on, who they work with, and even more.
Right. So and so when you approve the installation of this bot, it's there to help you find other people in your organization and leverage the Microsoft Graph. So I'll read from one of the help messages that the WhoBot provides. It says, you can ask me the following questions. Who is Jane? Who are Jack's peers? Who is Roger's manager? You can see this is just, it's a way to pull stuff from Active Directory, or Azure Active Directory as the case may be. Who does Emma work with? Who reports to Julie? Who knows about marketing? So not only can you find your peers and understand where they are in the organizational structure, it also lets you look for expertise. I meet with about product design.
Right now, who knows share integrate? We'll see what it comes back. I'll need permission to perform searches. I'm saying allow. So this is actually an intelligent search engine that's making inferences based on people's activity. It's inferring who the subject matter experts are in your organization. For those of you that are attendees, in the past, what have we got? We've had organization after organization create initiative after initiative saying, we need you to go and populate this subject matter expert database. Here are 792,000 different skill sets. We want each of you to rate yourselves on a 0 to 5 level basis or a 0 to 5 star basis. And then we're going to query that looking for subject matter expertise. It's agony. Nobody ever uses it. Nobody ever updates it. What Michael is showing us is that Microsoft's AI engine now is analyzing our activity in an already existing collaborative environment. It's looking over our shoulder. It's acting like a fly on the wall. And you're asking the fly, hey, fly, who's really the subject matter expert in Share Integrate in our organization, in Salesforce, in who knows a particular customer? And it's going to use its knowledge of our activities to come back and tell us who the real subject matter experts are, or the answer people, based on those kinds of AI classifications. Very cool stuff.
Yeah. So as you can see, this is it leverages AI, leverages the Microsoft Graph, and tries to address those key areas of knowledge discovery and help find and connect to your peers. This is also, I mean, for those of you who haven't heard of them, there's a third party out there called Hyperfish, and they have a product that helps organizations tidy up their Active Directory, especially making sure manager relationships and other metadata are up to date. And you can see that that kind of information is going to be key for driving this. Those questions, who is Jane? Well, you'll want to know her title. Who are Jack's peers? Well, you'll want to see who else is in the same department. Who's Roger's manager? If it has manager filled out. So you've got to have your Azure AD data populated in order for some of these things to work. And then the other things it'll look at based on the documents you've been working on, the things that you've done in email. So it's that combination of the graph and artificial intelligence. Of course, also pointing out that that the way you interact with this bot is by natural language questions. So there's AI just in processing the questions. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And then the other user interface element, which is new or improved recently, or you may not have played around with much, is at the very top. You see the search or type a command. So if you can go click in there.
I'm there. Go ahead.
Tap slash.
Oh, I was going to ask it to give me a sandwich. All right, I'm going to type slash.
And you'll see there's a list of these commands that pop up.
Very cool. So shortcuts that kind of condense or distill what it is you're really looking for. Find out, set my status to busy activity. I could see that being applied to a lot of different apps. Nice knowing that it's available in here. Is the who functionality any additional cost to Microsoft Teams, or it looks like it's free? Are we about to get blindsided with a $5 a month for this functionality, or is it going to continue?
It's as far from what I've seen, it just bundled in as part of the product.
Very cool.
Yeah. This is one of the ways they can compete and win against Slack.
And that's what we want to do. In the interest of time, I'm going to chop it off right there. That was slide 404. Mike, are you done?
Yep.
Fantastic.
I just want to add one more point. I want to add one more point, which is if you type an @ in the command bar, you get a bunch of options too.
Oh, well, now we have to test that one out just so everybody gets to see it. And we can go at places, real-time stock quotes, Wikipedia searches, checking the weather, always nice in the Chicago area. This makes this a very powerful tool because it brings search right into Teams. And if Teams is where Microsoft wants us all to be in 2018, is using that chat-based functionality for doing our collaboration, knowing that Teams is tied back into SharePoint, so there is a connection here, then this is what keeps us in this one user interface, this one user experience. We don't have to go someplace, switch UIs, switch UXs in order to perform things like or like searches and things like that. And it keeps the context inside the organization itself. Pretty cool. Mike, thanks for the demo on that, and thanks for being nimble and working with me today.
No problem.
I'm going to kill this slide presentation and try to pick up the other existing one. And we've got some other things to show you guys today.
Thank you all.
Trying to get restarted again. You guys tell me if you can see the slide presentation pop back up.
Yep.
All right, now I just need to find the presenter section of it. Always wants to hide right now. We'll move this over. Since I opened up Michael's, I may end up having to kill this and restart it just to make sure that I get the right one. Bringing it back up.
Yeah, while you're talking about that, Mark, we heard a couple of instances on Meetup that some individuals might have had some challenges with the GoToWebinar. So if there was some challenges logging in to GoToWebinar, if you guys wouldn't mind posting that to the comments on Meetup, so that this way we could go ahead and submit some feedback to GoToWebinar. Want to make sure that the platform is conducive to obviously everybody being able to join and participate. So thanks.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you, Dina. The next thing we want to talk about and share with you guys is that there's a new tool that was available only in the last couple of months inside all SharePoint lists and libraries. It's called the new JSON column formatting. One thing that I want you to try, we're leaving it in a slide here, we'll come back to it, is that you can actually go into this column by column formatting in any SharePoint list, any library, and actually use JSON to go and define a lot of additional functionality and formatting available on that cell. It can be as simple as go and add a div tag into every one of the cells that are there, go and grab the contents of that current field, and here's how I want you to style it. Make the background blue, make the color white, make the padding left, but it goes beyond that. There's conditioning or conditionals that can be put in there. There's logic that can be put on. And a quick way to show you this new functionality, it's stuff that many of us have been trying to do with content editor web parts for years. We've been doing it with cascading style sheets. There's a couple articles that show up in that slide that give you the basics about what's possible, that you can actually have stuff like you were used to seeing only in Excel, that kind of shading of a bar inside a column, or that kind of color coding, so that your lists, your libraries actually become dashboards. They start giving you key performance indicators embedded right into the dashboard itself. Not, I have my list, I have my library, and oh, here's my dashboard off to the side. The list, the library becomes the dashboard. To me, that's actually the holy grail of productivity, because all the information is trapped inside one structure, captured inside one structure. The list of types of functioning that you can work on is actually very, very verbose. There's conditional formatting. The JSON can be very, very complicated, or it can be as simple as, let me go and grab one little sample here, and I'm going to snatch this little bit of JSON. I'm going to copy it. Let's go use one of my lists for a guinea pig. I'm going to go to the SharePoint, the Chicagoland SharePoint Users Group library. This one library in Office 365. I can go and use the individual column name has a flyout, has a drop down. I can go to column settings. I can go to format this column. That's what you're looking for. And up pops this cool little dialog box on the right-hand side. All you have to do is paste that ever more complicated. You can start off simple and then make it more and more complicated. That logic that goes inside there saying, this is the schema that I want to use that describes what debug works as a key value pair in JSON, the element type, the text type. Basically, I'm saying for every element that's in this, every cell that's in this column, I want to add a div tag, and then I want to actually grab the contents, put it into the div tag, and then I want to style that contents by making the background color blue, the label or the text color white, and I want to do a little padding on the left, but it can go much beyond that. If you want to see what it looks like, you just hit preview, and suddenly you see where this is going. You can do column by column formatting. You can add logic that gives all of this other functionality, and it's as simple as trying to build it out as some kind of a JSON document that ends up being a set of instructions in this very intuitive key value pair sort of format that JSON is famous for, and ends up being just a very cool technique. We're going to look at this more and more. I just wanted to give you a flavor for it today so that you know that it exists and can see what it looks like. But it gives you, it's something that you definitely want to experiment with over the next couple of weeks, because if you've been building dashboards, like I've been building dashboards for customers as part of your business process automation, using SharePoint Designer workflows, etc., this is wonderful that suddenly I don't have to jump through a lot of hoops. I can go and touch an individual list or library and make it into that dashboard, something to experiment with. Let's continue and talk about another topic. I just did the live demo. Next thing we're going to do, we wanted to continue working with Microsoft Teams. One of the things we've been doing is trying to explore all of the different applications that could be embedded into a given conversation, a given channel, a given team inside Microsoft Teams. We already covered about 10 of them. We're going to cover a couple more today. The first one, the one that's very near and dear to my heart, is actually Power BI. This was kind of tough to actually embed into other technologies last year, into Power Apps, things like this. Microsoft has gone out of their way to make this seamless inside Microsoft Teams. Power BI starts, this app actually enables you to embed a Power BI report onto your particular team page. But that naturally is going to beg the question, what actually is a Power BI report? What are you even talking about, Mark? Let's look at the next slide. A Power BI report is actually a multi-perspective view, a set of visualizations, but it's all about a single data set, a single data source that you're going to look at, and you're going to create a bunch of visualizations that represent different findings, different insights from that data set. That's different than a dashboard. Let's note this off to the side, that a dashboard can actually cherry pick visualizations from multiple reports. So a report, lots of different visualizations, but all of the same data set. A dashboard is all about cherry picking visualizations from multiple reports, multiple data sets. There's a difference if you were ever wondering. But in this case, the Power BI app allows us to embed a report that we've already created into our team site. So I don't have to even go looking for it. I don't have to bring it up. I don't have to leave my team environment, that context, to go and try to do something inside that Power BI. So it all starts with building a Power BI report inside your Power BI portal in Office 365. And this is what it looks like. Inside of Power BI, you'd launch it from the little waffle menu. It's one of your tiles, one of your apps that are available to you, just like Word, just like Outlook, just like Calendar. Power BI is there. Power BI interface is made up of different workspaces where you can work either individually or with other people to start creating visualizations that go into specific reports, or to start mixing and matching and cherry picking to create your dashboards. Ultimately, you'll have a series of reports there. So you can see I've got BI project, the SIGNOTE EIP tracker, the Chicagoland SharePoint Users Group social media report, the MV Power BI file number 1. That's what it looks like from inside Power BI. Let's jump back into Teams and see what that looks like. What we see is that when you try to embed the Power BI app into your team, it gives you a little dialog box that says, what workspace do you want to go into? And it knows to go into your Power BI portal, into the workspace that you selected, either an individual workspace, like your My workspace, or it could be a shared workspace. And then it comes back and actually lists all of the reports that it finds there for you. So you see that this all matches up directly with what we just saw in the Power BI portal. Way cool. I didn't have to go and know it in advance. I could actually just go browse for it. I chose the Chicagoland SharePoint Users Group social media report and simply said save, and here's what you end up with. I end up with that report being embedded as a tab inside this particular team that has to do with West High and with everybody. So now I can look at that report in the context of my conversations, my chats, in the context of my tasks that I've been assigning and my files that I'm sharing with everybody, suddenly that report becomes a natural extension. It's included in that context that I'm working with. And this is a very solid step by Microsoft to make this kind of functionality available. I think this is fantastic that they did such a seamless job with the Power BI and with the reporting. Another app that's available inside Microsoft Teams is Microsoft Stream. And I think if some of you have attended previous sessions, you'll see me just gush about Microsoft Stream because it's their fantastic YouTube that's private. I think they went better. I think they did a better job than YouTube about showing up videos. Excuse me. When you try to add a stream application into your team, all you need to do is give a name to the tab and then simply give it a URL to where that video is that you want to embed. So you're embedding a live video into the context of your team. You could have multiple streams. There might be multiple videos. The videos might be about some kind of training or some kind of a lecture, some kind of a explanation for something that has to do with that particular team, and you embed it directly so it stays inside that context of working with that team. Very cool. By going inside Microsoft Streams, I can go and snatch the URL, and what I end up seeing when I embed it is I see actually a live presentation. And what you guys are looking at there is a video stream of one of my planes that has a first-person video camera on it. So I can go flying one of my RC planes and actually think I'm sitting inside the plane and flying it. It's kind of cool. But the point is you get to see a video embedded inside your team, and all you have to do is hit play. There's no link that takes you out of the team site in order to go and see the video, and then you have to somehow navigate your way back. It's all seamlessly, naturally embedded right inside that team. Very nice. The next one, and the last one that we're going to talk about today, I see we've got 12:42. I've got to speed up a little bit, is Power Apps. And I was floored when I saw this because I've been building Power Apps for about a year now, and the thought that you could actually embed applications right inside your Microsoft team, your team or your channel, that was fantastic. Let's see what that actually looks like. What are we talking about? When you open up that particular app and try to embed a Power Apps app, you get to specify which app and where it exists. And all you have to do is go and drill down into a navigator that already goes into your Power Apps portal, logs in with your credentials, and comes back with a list of all of the applications that have been shared with you, either created by you and then published, or created by other people in your organization and published and made available to you. In this case, I've got one called the Signode Request Tracker, and I want to actually embed that application right into my Microsoft team for West High for everybody. Let's see what that looks like. Once you click it, it actually starts to use the context of this little window in here, like it's a little mini browser. It looks at the dimensions and it goes and gets that particular Power Apps application and actually comes and delivers it right inside the context here of what's available. And the result is you get what's normally cast as a little mini mobile app. This one was built for a phone, so it comes back in and it displays right inside your teams. I never had to go into the portal. I never even had to pick up my phone. I get to stay in the context of this particular team in order to interact with this application. So now I've got this team that's giving me the chat functionality, giving me the access to conversations, access to files, access to other applications where I can embed other files that I'm working on directly. It's as if this team is almost like a work desk where I can literally just set a bunch of stuff out and work on it directly, not go and pull it out of a file, but it's right there, all laying on top of each other, tiled right next to each other. And when I want to work on West High everyone in that general team, all of these tools are immediately available to me right in this one single interface. And they're all open. They're all ready to be edited, ready to be interacted with. I can go in and change the values that are inside this particular request and set up a new request. And ultimately, I can end up submitting. This is actually a button that lets me add a new one. So I have the full functionality inside that particular application. And this got me to thinking, this is showing just some of the applications that can be added into Microsoft Teams in order to create team environments that allow us to seamlessly collaborate and never have to leave, so we can stay focused. Because it's when you leave those environments that it's when you step out of your cubicle, it's when you step out of the building that you actually start to lose productivity every time you do that. So Microsoft's play here is to try to keep our function, try to keep our attention, keep our focus in one single interface. So we stay on top of it and we end up being more productive as a result. Now, I ended with Power Apps inside Microsoft Teams because what I wanted to do next is spend the remainder of today's session talking about a new challenge related to Power Apps. We got hit with a customer a couple of days ago at lunch. They came up and said, hey, you really want to do something cool? Here's our problem. Our challenge is that our business processes are already automated, but with SharePoint Designer workflows. And for the people here that still have, say, SharePoint 2010 or 2013 on premise, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've gone all out of your way to automate your business processes using SharePoint Designer's workflows, and you've done a stellar job. You've gained a lot of ground. You've increased your productivity a lot. You're not ready to throw all that away, but your business starts asking you for mobile apps that can somehow empower these automated processes. What do I mean by that? The VP of one of our customers said, hey, my kid's in swimming club all the time. I'm always at practices. I don't bring my laptop. All I've got is my phone. I want to try to be productive. Give me a phone with a little mobile app that'll allow me to participate in all of our different business processes. In particular, go and automate. I want to go and be able to approve requests, CapEx requests for capital expenditures for over $10,000 on a request for something to be done. You make me an app that can do that. You got my attention. So we looked and said, yeah, it turns out this is possible. They also said they want to get push notifications right into their phone. So while this VP is watching his kid swimming lanes in the swim, he suddenly gets a note that goes ding and tells him, hey, there's a new application. You need to approve it right away. And he can actually interact with a mobile app knowing that he got a notification in his mobile app, and it all started with SharePoint at the core and ends up being empowered by Power Apps and by SharePoint Designer workflows and by Microsoft Flows. Let's see what that looks like. The last challenge that they had was Microsoft Flow can do the push notifications, but they can't afford to recode everything. We just want the push notifications. Is that legal? Can we get away with that? Turns out the answer is yes. All that functionality can actually be integrated together virtually effortlessly. And I'm going to show you that in just the next few minutes. You can start with a SharePoint list in the middle, the SharePoint list that you've already been building, the SharePoint Designer workflows that provide a lot of that core functionality. And you can simply add additional Microsoft Flow flows that simply monitor this particular list. And when different events happen, it's the Microsoft Flow that actually has the ability to send push notifications out to my phone where I see this little flow, and that flow has a message that will go and open up the Power Apps right on my phone to let me interact with the particular record that that message had to do with, or that was related to that message. So suddenly I end up with all of the original functionality, my original SharePoint lists and libraries. For the guys that are in AT&T and stuff that were telling us for the last few sessions, you've got SharePoint 2010 still. All of this stays the same. But the move into actually increasing the move into embracing cloud functionality gives you access to the Microsoft Flows that can watch these lists, that can then respond to those events and suddenly give you a mobile interface into this existing information. Let's see what that looks like a little bit more. We start off with SharePoint providing the core lists and libraries. Nothing has changed there. Then SharePoint Designer workflows can continue to be utilized for the core process automation if you want. If you're not ready to start coding in Microsoft Flow more complex business logic, you can stay inside SharePoint Designer workflows. Then on top of it all, you can add additional little flows, because what's a flow? What's a workflow? It's just a series of event handlers. You can add multiple event handlers onto a given list, and they all are going to respond to the various events that are going out. So this is just a very simple Microsoft flow called sending a request status push notification, where I'm monitoring a particular list in SharePoint, and when the item is created or modified, and if the request status value is equal to approved, it's going to send a mobile notification out. I could also send email if I wanted, but I chose mobile because I wanted to see what that looks like. And what happens is, 249, inside my phone, I end up being able to launch a particular Power Apps app that allows me to interact with the notification that just came into my phone. So we end up with a standard Power Apps client. This is what it looks like on my mobile phone, a Samsung Galaxy S7. And here's what the actual app looks like. Very simple for the purpose of today's demonstration, but it lets me do exactly what that particular VP was looking for. I still get to leverage SharePoint, but I'm doing it from a mobile experience, and it's super simple. It's super easy to do. It's cost effective. Let's take a look at a live demonstration of this. Here goes. I'm going to go and bring up a browser. I'm going to take my phone, and I'm actually going to put it, I can't show it to you guys, but I'm going to put the speaker right next to the microphone on my laptop. What we're going to do is actually go into this particular list. And what's going to happen is I can go into this list either right from inside SharePoint, if that's my normal experience, but I can also go into the Power Apps version of it. I'm going to go launch the Power Apps. And it doesn't matter where this was. This could be from the phone. This could be from the laptop. I can share the laptop. That's why I'm showing it to you in the laptop today. We're going to wait for the application to launch. The application has business logic tied to the list. So while this is finishing loading, I'll go back here. This particular list has one SharePoint Designer workflow tied to it. It has two Microsoft flows tied to it. The flow looks something like this that says it's going to send a push notification. And if I just open it up briefly to show you what it looks like, it's going to be looking at this particular list, the request approval Power App, that whenever there's a change there, it's going to look at the change and say, if the request status value is equal to approved, send a mobile notification out. In fact, the note is going to look like this. Good news, request number 20 has been approved. That's all that it's going to do. The rest of the SharePoint Designer workflow is going to handle all the other business logic. Let me close this. I didn't add any changes onto it. Let's go back into the Power Apps. Let's go pick one of these and actually set it up. What should happen, let's go to sample 07. I'm going to open this one up. We're going to go to edit it. And the way the business logic works is that if this one is set to approved and this one is set to approved, then SharePoint, the SharePoint Designer workflow is going to trigger on an item changed event. It's going to look to see, is this approved and is this approved? If so, then the SharePoint Designer workflow is going to set the overall status to approved. The Microsoft flow is going to monitor for changes, and if this value changes to approved, it's going to send a little push notification out to my phone. So let's see what happens. When I click this button, it should submit these changes back into the SharePoint list. That's going to trigger the SharePoint Designer workflow. Could take up to a minute for the SharePoint Designer workflow to trigger. The SharePoint Designer workflow is going to look at these two values and set this one, and then the Microsoft flow is actually going to look at this, and if it's the appropriate status, approved, it's going to send a message, and we should hear my phone send me a little push notification. Here goes. I've clicked it. It's now submitted that to the list. And somewhere down in here, I'm going to do a refresh. There it is. Hopefully you guys heard that. I just had SharePoint Designer workflows update a value here that the request status got set to approved. That Microsoft flow just saw that this particular value got set to approved, and it actually sent a notification out to my phone. Where we've been living inside SharePoint, trapped inside SharePoint, inside browsers, we suddenly have full control with Power Apps and with SharePoint Designer workflows and with Microsoft Flow flows. We have the ability to reach out and create mobile experiences for SharePoint, not just mobile, but we have full control over all the stuff that used to be only in the realm of the native app developers. The ability to send push notifications, the ability to control the camera, the ability to control the GPS or look at the accelerometers in the phone to see if it's level. We have access to all of that, all from inside SharePoint. And you guys just got a little flavor of that demo today. Let's see if I've got anything else that shows up on this one. I wanted to see, I think I had one more note here that just shows you what that notification looks like. And I'll have to try to zoom in. Let's see if I've got zooming in. What I wanted to show you was this. This is what that actual message looks like. This is actually a snapshot from last night of my mobile phone, my Galaxy S7. And this message that you see here, new sample item request 22, that got sent by this Microsoft Flow. This Microsoft Flow was watching this list, and that list was being updated by a SharePoint Designer workflow. And ultimately, that SharePoint list can be interacted with from a mobile app. We've got everything we need these days to actually do complete mobile application development, and it's all available to us in SharePoint. So hopefully you guys saw some value in that particular demo. I thought it was pretty cool. Let's go look at the last couple of slides. I see we're at T-minus 12:55. I wanted to open up discussion and see what else you guys wanted to try to cover in 2018. Some of our AT&T attendees were quick to say, help us back inside SharePoint Designer. Help us back inside developing solutions that can work inside SharePoint 2010 on-premise, SharePoint 2013 on-premise. Let's open up the microphones and see if anybody else had some. Fantastic. Hi, everybody. What else do people want to talk about in the SharePoint group? I mean, we can continue throwing stuff out at everybody. No problem there. And we'll always try to come up with stuff we think has a compelling business case for showing it to you. Does anyone have any business problems that they want to try to cover? Not just what we want to cover in 2018, but we typically have a BYOP for the particular on-premise or on-cloud problems that people have been facing.
So everybody's been unmuted, so if you have a question, feel free.
I know it's always quiet. There's always shy people. I'm opening up my attendees panel. For some reason, I only see the staff today. I don't see the attendees listed here. But I do see we've got more than a dozen people in attendance.
Mark, this is Dan. And one thing that I always like to see is how other organizations and people, the tips and tricks they find to kind of customize their site and how they present things to the different their different coworkers and stuff, as in like document libraries, lists, and tricks they find. Hey, our people like it when we do this as opposed to just out of the box. And currently we're on SharePoint 2010, pulling my hair out, migrating to 2013. And I love seeing the new stuff that's coming down the road, so I know how to plan. But just that's the type of stuff that I like to see.
Dan, is that you at AT&T?
No, I'm at CIBM. At the bank.
Oh, at CIBM. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, we'd love to. In fact, I'll throw this out as another challenge. I'll continue asking everybody, Alfie, Cindy, Dan, Dennis, Kathleen, Nirav, Teresa. I see a lot of new names today, people that haven't attended before. I would like you to contact me. You've got my email address. It's mark.vote. I'm putting it in the chat right now. We're trying to make this a users group. We're definitely trying not to do any selling. We're sharing stuff. We're a lot of consultants that have a lot of experience, but we love hearing from all the individual users. And this is Dan saying, hey, what are other people doing? What works for people? I've got my own ideas about lists that turn into dashboards and stuff like that. We'd love to see some other tips and tricks from other people. I invite you to simply email me for next time and say, hey, Mark, I want 2 minutes. I've got one slide that's a pretty good tip. I want to start doing this. Hopefully you guys are seeing that this is a very informal group. Nobody's going to make fun of you if something goes wrong. We just punt and figure out how we're going to get it up on the screen, because we're here to learn how to get the most value out of this technology called SharePoint.
So this is Alfie. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, Alfie.
Okay, my question is regarding adoption and regarding, are we really thinking that a power user will have the time to learn all this technology in order to implement solutions? Or do you think that it's going to be part of IT responsibilities to provide the solutions that you're talking about? That means it's more like a how do you see the adoption at the user community? Are they going to become power users who are using all those tools to develop processes, or those processes will be developed under the IT umbrella?
Alfie, you're actually asking a fantastic question. The quick answer is this. Microsoft has long adopted this. We've heard in SharePoint a distributed and delegated administrative model, but in recent years, Microsoft has seen that expand to become a distributed and delegated development model. What it means is, in short, most organizations have this dark ops side. They have this rogue IT of people that like to walk around with white hats called power users wearing, that they're wearing, but a lot of times they're perceived by IT, that's not a white hat, it's a black hat. And they're seen as the bad guys that are out there creating rogue solutions that cause problems. Microsoft's approach, and certainly MTech embraces this, is to try to empower those people. They're smart, they're intelligent, they're willing to invest, and they're actually open to tutelage, so that if the IT organization, which is typically woefully understaffed, can embrace those power users and begin to show them best practices, they will embrace those best practices, and you'll end up with sort of an 80-20 rule. Let those power users, let those fledgling developers get 2/3 of the solution solved all on their own. It saves the IT guys, the monks, the developers, it saves them a lot of time and energy. Let them work on those parts and only help them where they get stuck. Only help them where there's actually a need for a custom tool, something that empowers the solution that they're building. In the meantime, continue to teach those people so that they can come out of the dark and into the light and actually become participate in a part of IT that never existed before. It used to be that there's a wall there. You're either in IT or you're not. But there's an entire subpopulation of people, those power users, power developers, that are sharp, intelligent, business savvy people who can and will participate in creating those solutions if IT gives them the chance, gives them the training that they're craving to do so. And part of the reason that, Alfie, that this users group even exists is that me, Mark Vogt, I'm perceiving that a lot of the people that are members and attendees fall into that group, that a fraction of us are all pure developers in IT, quite all right. There's a lot of other people here that actually are in that other group, that tier that's somewhere between IT and just being a business user, and they're keen on trying to deliver business solutions. Does that answer your question? Alfie, you can go off mute.
I got an alternative to that one too.
Shoot, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, because that question goes back to my days when I used to work for Reuters, and one of the apps that they had at Reuters in these old Windows 3.0 machines was Excel.
Announce to everybody who's talking right now. We had Alfie, we had Mark. Who's this? Dennis?
This is Ralph talking now.
Oh, Ralph. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to say, back in our day, the tool that was essentially that was Excel. Excel was the spreadsheet that was like the pariah spreadsheet, the rogue spreadsheet, because Lotus 1-2-3 was king, and anybody who tried to do stuff with Excel, they must have been rogue. Unfortunately, those rogue players were, guess what? They were the traders. They were the people that did the trading of the stocks, the commodities, the things, the very high level. They were essentially money makers. Yeah. We know the story, right? Lotus 1-2-3 is no longer, right? Excel is still around and very, very powerful. So the question really is like, okay, I think the question was, whose responsibility is it to actually learn and to be able to do this stuff? Is it IT, or is it these power users that we are now forced to train? Here's the problem: they may want to train them, but maybe they cannot. That's one problem. The other one is IT may want to support it, but they can't. They don't have the cycles to do so. Got to find the magic, as they say, the magic quadrant of where all these pieces come into play. But here's the reality. The reality is there is a tool essentially that has the power. And it's now a matter of governance. The corporate, at some higher level, the first decision is made, governance-wise, is like, okay, is this allowed, yes or no? And to what extent? But that should be allowed from the top level. That way, there's expectations are set. The people that are looking for support, or the power users, know to what limit they can go, or how far they can go, or what they can expect to get as far as support. And you got to remember that that's the decision, because if you don't make that decision, if IT and the power users worked it out for themselves, then suddenly a corporate governance person comes in or a security guy comes in and says, hey, what the heck are you guys doing here? Did anyone think of consulting me first? That's what's going to happen, right? So,
right, but the question is the point that I wanted to make, maybe it's not about now let's decide what the governance and let's decide what the roles of shadow IT and we, from IT perspective, and I'm coming from a developer background and I'm the SharePoint architect in our company, so I understand and I see both sides, and it's not about who's right, who's wrong right now. My question is regarding adoption is because, for instance, we presented Nintex as a workflow tool for our users community. Okay. And we expected that the adoption will be fantastic. People will get excited from the tool and will dive in. The end result was that only few from our community of users actually pick up the challenge and started building workflow in Nintex. What I wanted to hear from you guys is, how do you see the adoption? Because here we are dealing with a moving target, a good moving target of SharePoint, of Office 365 that really provides such a plethora of tools and a lot of options and possibilities. The question is, do you see a better adoption, or do you see a good adoption of those tools, or in the end we'll be left to, okay, IT, we really like to do this, we start to do this, but it's too much work, please complete this project?
That's still going to happen no matter what. That's the problem. The more powerful the tools, or the more simple the tools appear to get from Microsoft, that's still going to happen. They're going to come back and say, no matter what, they say, oh, IT, can you please finish this? Because that's how do we say, water will flow down to the lowest point in the land. What's easier to do? Is it easier for me to build it, or can I just ask IT? Those guys aren't doing anything anyway. that's where the governance has to come in. Basically, there needs to be, as they say, the piece that it's not so much right or wrong. It's a decision that says, okay, the users are doing their business. They're running the business. They're doing their bits. Some people might be more savvy than others. Will have an inkling or a knack for like doing what the folks used to do with Excel, with Access, and all these other programs, including SharePoint. All right, the question is, do you promote them? Do you keep them going? Or do you expect them to even appear? I'm presenting Nintex to everyone. Hey, look how great this tool is. Now use it. Now, all of a sudden, you've just given everybody a hammer, and I'm holding a hammer. I'm like, I don't need to nail anything. I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm using.
I think that the analogy here is that you're giving them an F16 to move from one point to another.
Yes. So maybe they don't. Maybe one person will be like, "Cool, F16," and everyone else is like, "Okay, I'm going to park it over there. I'll look at it once in a while." And then I'm going to say, "Can you fly this for me?" Right?
Right. Alfie, I think
that's going to happen.
I would like to take a crack at this too.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. So this is Michael Blumenthal again. So user adoption of any set of IT technologies is more than a one-time thing. It's an ongoing. It's a matter of ongoing operations. When it comes to Office 365, to go back to Alfie's earlier question, there is so much stuff in Office 365. No one end user can wrap their heads around it. What the approach that we've taken to driving user adoption is almost like a set of marketing campaigns where there's an ongoing set of things that we do, and it's a variety of different approaches to make people aware of the tools that are available to them, and then when once people know, then they turn around and come back to us and say, hey, this sounds interesting. Can I learn more about this, or can I use this for, or come talk to me about this tool because we have these problems. And as we go and talk about the tools, we also invite them to invite the end users to consultative sessions. But really, when you identify those power users, you really want to encourage them and nurture them and recruit them into a champions program. And a champions program is something that can be run by IT to really leverage the power users, work with the power users, reward the power users, train the power users, and by putting the power users in a champions program, you get better communication with them, as well as you get more awareness of what they're doing, so that avoids some of the dark IT, and you have the ability to show more business value for the things that you're doing. So let's say Joe, end user, power user, gets his whole team to adopt Teams. Well, that he did that because you told him about Teams and you mentored him on how to set up a team, and you talked to him about their business process and so forth. And now you can turn around and ask Joe, how long did it take you to do things the way you did before? How long did it take you to do it now using Teams and SharePoint and so forth? Oh, wow, you're saving 10 minutes per person per day. Hey, that comes out to XYZ dollar amount per year. And then you put that in his PowerPoint deck, give it to him, give it to your boss, and he gives it to his boss. And now he looks good because he saved his team money and his boss knows about it. You look good because IT looks good because they've helped save the company money, or they're getting return on investment from their from their investment office.
Mike, I love where everything is going. Everybody, this is Mark. We have a limit. We have another conference call or another webinar that's going to start very shortly and get recorded. We need to stop, but Alfie, you've already inspired me on what next month's topic is going to be. It's going to focus on how do you drive adoption of SharePoint across and into depth-wise into an entire organization.
Yeah, that would be a great subject.
What does that model actually look like? And it sounds like everybody's very passionate. So I know I'm going to be weighing in. Mike's going to be weighing in. Ralph's going to be weighing in. Everybody, thanks for your additional participation. Last slide is going up, and it says, end of session, bring your friends to the March 14th session and watch for the meetup. It's going to be talking about, hey, how do we actually govern and build out? How do we drive adoption inside SharePoint? I'm already looking forward to it. I already got 2 pages of notes. Thanks, everybody, for a fantastic session. Looking forward to next March 14th. This is Mark signing off.